Hello viewers. Today we will discuss about Immigration Health Surcharge, IHS fees, what is paid at the time of visa application. We will cover brief overview, who does and does not need to pay, how much you have to pay, refund procedures, and how long it takes to get refund if required. When you can start to use the NHS free of charge. You can start using the NHS free of charge from the date your visa starts. You'll still need to pay for certain types of services, such as prescriptions, dental treatment, eye tests, and assisted conception. Who needs to pay? You usually need to pay the healthcare surcharge if you're applying for a visa or immigration application. For more than 6 months, if you're applying outside the UK. For any length of time, if you're applying inside the UK. You do not need to pay if you're applying for a visitor visa or to remain in the UK permanently. Who does not need to pay? Use the NHS without paying the surcharge if you're applying for indefinite leave to enter or remain. You're a health and care worker who is eligible for a health and care worker visa, or you're their dependent. You're applying to the EU settlement scheme. You're a diplomat or a member of a visiting armed forces and not subject to immigration control. You're a dependent of a member of the UK's armed forces. You're the dependent of a member of another country's armed forces, who is exempt from immigration control. You're a British Overseas Territory citizen resident in the Falkland Islands. You're an asylum seeker, or applying for humanitarian protection, or you're their dependent. You're a domestic worker, who has been identified as a victim of slavery or human trafficking. You're applying for discretionary leave to remain in the UK as someone who has been identified as a victim of slavery or human trafficking, or you're their dependent. The Home Office's domestic violence concession applies to you, or you're their dependent. Being made to leave the UK would be against your rights, under Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, or you're their dependent. You're an S2 healthcare visitor. You're eligible for a frontier worker permit and have an S1 certificate. You're a child under 18 who has been taken into care by a local authority. You're a relevant civilian employee at NATO or the Australian Department of Defence in the UK, or you're their dependent. You're applying to stay in the UK as a victim of human trafficking or slavery, or you're the dependent of someone who is. You're applying to stay in the UK as a stateless person. You're applying for the Ukraine Extension Scheme, or for a visa under the Homes for Ukraine Sponsorship Scheme. Visitor visas and short-term visas. You do not need to pay the surcharge if you're applying for a visitor visa. Visa for 6 months or less from outside the UK. If you're applying for a visa for the Isle of Man or Channel Islands, you do not need to pay the IHS. You will need to pay for any NHS care you get at the point you use it. How much you have to pay. The exact amount you pay depends on the length of your visa. Cost for a year. You'll have to pay £776 per year for students, their dependents, and those on a youth mobility scheme visa, for example £1,552 for a 2-year visa. £776 per year for visa and immigration applicants who are under the age of 18 at time of application. £1,035 per year for all other visa and immigration applications, for example £3,105 for a 3-year visa. Cost for part of a year. 6 months or less. You do not need to pay the surcharge if you're applying from outside the UK for 6 months or less. If you're applying from inside the UK, you'll have to pay half the yearly cost. For example, £388 for students, their dependents, youth mobility scheme or under 18 applications. £517.50 for any other application. More than 6 months but less than 1 year. Wherever you apply from, you'll have to pay the cost of a full year. Cost for more than 1 year. If your visa is for more than a year, you'll have to pay the yearly cost plus half the yearly cost if it's for 18 months or less. The cost of 2 full years if it's for more than 18 months but less than 2 years. Dependents aged 18 or over usually need to pay the same amount as you. If you do not pay, you'll get an email from UK Visas and Immigration. Once you get the email, You must pay the surcharge within 10 working days if you're inside the UK, 7 working days if you're outside the UK. Refunds. You'll get a full Immigration Health Surcharge, IHS, refund if you paid the IHS twice for the same visa application. Your visa application is refused. You withdraw your visa application before a decision is made. You'll get a partial IHS refund if your visa application's successful, but you get less time on your visa than you asked for. Any dependents on your visa application are refused a visa, you'll only get their IHS back. You're applying to extend or switch your visa in the UK and have paid the IHS twice for the same period. If you've paid twice for the same period, and that period is 6 months or more, you'll get a partial refund rounded down to the nearest 6 months. For example, if you've paid twice for a 15-month period, you will get a refund for 12 months of IHS. If you have paid twice for the same period of less than 6 months, you will not get a refund. How you'll be refunded. If you are due a full or partial refund for these reasons, you do not have to do anything to get it. It will be paid to the account or card you paid with. If someone else paid the IHS on your behalf, they'll receive your refund. You will not get a refund if you withdraw your visa application after your visa is granted. Your visa application is successful, but you do not come to the UK. You leave the UK before your visa ends, for example to make a new application. You're told to leave the UK before your visa expires. You're applying for indefinite leave to remain. You're switching to another visa which is exempt from the IHS. If a visa applicant dies in the UK or before arriving, the IHS will not be refunded. If you work in health or care and you have a visa, you and your dependents may be able to get a refund of the IHS. You'll only get a refund for periods you worked in health or care for 6 months or more. If you worked in health or care for less than 6 months, you will not get any money back. You will only get a refund for your dependents if their visa covers the same period as yours. How long it takes. You usually get your refund within 28 days of getting a decision on your visa application. It can take longer if you appeal or ask for an administrative review after your visa application is refused. Thank you for watching.